Okay, cool. I think we should kick off. Hey, thanks for being here today. I'm Edgen Irimia. I'm a co-founder of cryptoland.tech. But before I start, I would like to thanks ClujAI community for helping us to spread the word and increase the visibility on this event, as well for Osho Protocol for accepting our invitation to join us here in Cluj-Napoca and share what they are doing in Berlin. So thanks, John, for coming. And also for ClujHub for allowing us to use their facility. So thank you very much, guys. I'm going to give you a bit of background with regards to CryptoLang. I do know that many of you know much more about Cluj AI rather than CryptoLang. So we are a blockchain technical community which facilitates collaboration, partnerships, and knowledge sharing. Basically, what we are doing, we're building bridges between our community and other communities, businesses, or projects, or team members which are involved in blockchain development. We have two goals, let's say. Our main goal is to increase the visibility of Romanian tech hubs, starting with Cluj-Napoca. And to contribute even more to the development of the blockchain ecosystem. Why I'm saying even more? Because there are already a lot of guys which are involved in the development of the blockchain ecosystem. I don't know if you know, but let's say number 2 and number 3 on Ethereum are Romanian. So yeah, we should be very proud about that. Also, our second goal is to increase the knowledge in terms of blockchain knowledge, but from a technical point of view. Why I'm saying that, when we started this initiative, we realized that there is a knowledge gap, and one of our goals was to reduce this gap. Obviously, we started to read, we started to chat, we started to debate about blockchain technology, but we felt that is not enough. So we thought ourselves, why not to engage with teams and projects which are already involved into different blockchain development projects. But at some point we realized that, okay, even if you are going to do that, we thought that we can accelerate this process by being hands-on and start actually to write code and to develop products on blockchain. So as a matter of fact, as we speak, we're developing a cryptocurrency wallet. So yeah, the community actually develops a cryptocurrency wallet, but I'm going to tell you more on the next slide. So first of all, we use Discord as our main channel. So we have a website, cryptoland.tech. You can access that website, fill a form, and receive an invitation link to our Discord server. What I'm saying is the main communication channel, because on the Discord we are sharing what we are doing, we are sharing about our events, updates, we are chatting, we are debating. There are a lot of guys there which joined our community. There are guys which are already hands-on on big projects, Ethereum, Cardano, and many others which are just kicked off now. Our Discord server is a very good environment for rookies. If you just started to learn more about blockchain from a technical perspective, you are going to find, or to have a soft landing, because you are going to find there a lot of guys which have a lot of expertise that could guide you through the learning, let's say, process. But also for the guys which are experienced, there are also a lot of seniors that you could chat about technical or complex things, or complex problems. So feel free to access our website and join our Discord server. We have around 120 members. 80% are software engineers, 20% are product people. What I'm trying to highlight with these facts or numbers is that most of us are focused on know very well what actually means software development life cycle. Doesn't matter if you are involved or not into the blockchain development yet. So Yeah, just to add a bit, yeah, a bit more details about what we did in 2018. So we started this initiative in mid-2017. We were a bunch of blockchain enthusiasts, part from a corporation which is based here in Cluj-Napoca. Then we moved to different other communities, and we realized at some point that everyone is talking about moons, Lambos, and yeah, more interested on the opportunity side rather than technology. And yeah, we basically at the beginning of this year, we launched our own identity, namely cryptoland.tech. We launched our website, and we started to engage with many, perhaps, of you, with a lot of communities, and tell them about what we're trying to do, to grab the attention and to invite or engage with as many projects from the blockchain world, let's say. So we had the chance at the end of May to work with Centris team. It's a business which actually is based in Brașov, that they have also an office here. I don't know if there is someone in the room which is working for Centris. So we had the chance to work with them, and they allow us to organize our first, or the first meetup under cryptoland.tech umbrella. So the guys from Aion joined us here in Cluj-Napoca. Matt spoke, and Jean too, the CEO and the CTO of Aion. I don't know if you heard about Aion. Yeah. It's a blockchain project from Canada. Yeah, they raise a lot of money, and they are trying to solve the interoperability issue. Anyway, so then we had another workshop, and we tackled the smart contract programming. We had the solidity and hashgraph perspective. So more or less with the same team, but also we had the guys, the ambassadors from hashgraph, Alex Malesh and Gossip Guy. Pretty interesting workshop. Then we find out that Zilica, have you heard about Zilica? Right, cool. So we heard about their grant program, and we thought that it would be good to apply. And we developed a comprehensive document. It was actually our view on how a cryptocurrency wallet should be built. And as a matter of fact, they accepted us into their program. So as we speak, we build one of their cryptocurrency wallets. Then we had a chance to meet them face-to-face here in Cluj. I don't know if you heard about our workshop, full-day workshop in September. So head of research Amrit and Han joined us here, and we deep dive into their smart contract programming language. Pretty low level one. So the guys which were senior felt, yeah, in love because they remember the old times. The guys which were new felt a bit overwhelming. So pretty tough one. Anyway, we enjoyed it, and yeah, just coming to the, yeah, nowadays, I had the chance last week to attend DevCon. Have you heard about DevCon? Okay, so it's the yearly main Ethereum event. So I went to Prague, and also my colleague Adrian Balasco over there, he went to Malta. So what we did, our purpose was to promote what we are doing here, to promote and to tell, to engage with people involved or with projects and tell them about us, about Cryptoland, about what we are doing, and see whether they're will be open to join us here, to start to share knowledge, potentially to collaborate, potentially to touch also the business side. So yeah, a very good event. Just want to add here something about DevCon. DevCon this year, for the fourth time, so it was the fourth event of Ethereum annual event. For the first time, they had a UX track, user experience track. So this is changing a bit the game. So we are going to see some improvements on the usability in the following period. So for instance, they had a UX audit contest there. So for the first time, I saw projects that actually moved from keeping the font safe into an address on keeping the funds on the smart contract, which is changing a bit the rules of the game. So, and this is the official message from Ethereum, because a lot of projects which had this approach, they want some user experience content. So things are going to change a lot in the following year. So a lot of improvements might come, and perhaps adoption. So the fact is that everyone is pretty aware that if we are not going to solve the usability issues, we should not think anymore about adoption. So we need that mom test. Have you heard about mom test? So if our moms are going to use that wallet, Mickey, then we are good to go. All right, so today, yeah, we have the chance to have Ocean Protocol team members here. So John is going to deep dive into what they're doing in Berlin. Also, we're going to have a Q&A session. And Sebastian, which is also on, apart from the Ocean Protocol team, but with a technical background, is going to join us remotely, hopefully. Right, TB? Okay, cool. And we're going to have one more event by the end of this month. So as I said, we started to build a cryptocurrency wallet. By the way, it's an open source project. You can check our GitHub. We learned a lot, and we'd love to share this experience. So myself, Mickey, and TB is going to present both product and technical perspective, how actually we build that cryptocurrency wallet. Okay, what's coming? A lot of things are coming. So, as I said, we engage with a lot of projects, and we pushed the community initiative, Cryptoland, and a lot of guys from pretty well-known projects from the ecosystem are quite keen to join us, to come to Cluj-Napoca and to engage with us. There are some discussions with Omise Go. Actually, that are over there should have been the roadmap, but unfortunately, I'm not able to put any next meetup. Because we need to follow up on all contacts, and we need to receive confirmation. So we might have early next year Omise Go here in Cluj-Napoca. I don't know if you heard about Omise Go. So Omise.co is a payment provider in Asia, which is pretty big, and they have also a project on the blockchain, omisego.network. So pretty big project. A lot of stuff, they're going to deliver a lot of stuff for, both, let's say, business-wise and for community purpose, open source project. So, hopefully we are going to see Shapeshift. I don't know if you heard about Shapeshift. I don't know if you heard about Kyber Network. Status is quite a big project. If you use or at least heard about stable coins, the guys from MakerDAO might come here. So hopefully we're going to see next year many projects from the ecosystem, and to meet them and to start to share knowledge, gain knowledge, so on and so forth. So pretty interesting 2019. Okay, so how you can help us? That's the selling slide. So there is no selling here, perhaps only for businesses. So if you are part from businesses, so you should keep the focus on the right hand side, otherwise on the left hand side. So if you are an individual, just spread the word about us, that we exist. Join our Discord server, stay engaged, share your thoughts, attend our meetups, workshops, learn and share your knowledge. If you have in plan to organize a meetup or to organize a workshop, obviously blockchain related, please engage with us. We have a lot of contacts. We work with ClujHub in terms of facilities. There is a good deal with them, so we can share it, you can use it. We can attract sponsors. So feel free to engage with us. Also check our GitHub. There are a lot of open source goodies there. So Miki Sokac here, Tiberio Chris Boyd there, Jonuts over there, and a lot of other guys are contributing to their repo. So if you're a business, yeah, feel free to engage with us to sponsor our events and increase your visibility among blockchain enthusiasts, as well as share your projects and allow us to be part from your story. Okay, that's pretty much it. You can find us on Twitter, Discord, Medium, LinkedIn, GitHub, and also you can access cryptoland.tech. I'm going now to invite John and to kick off the Ocean Protocol session. I think we have 45 minutes, a lot of slides, a lot of content, and then we are going to invite Sebastian to join us. And in case that you have questions, doesn't matter if you're touching the business side, the product side, or the technical side, feel free to raise your hand. All right, thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. So thanks to Adrian, TB for hosting me tonight, and thanks to ClujHub also for hosting that tonight. So as Adrian mentioned, at the end we'll have a Q&A, and my colleague Sebastian from Berlin will join on Hangouts, and he's a dev. I'm not a dev, so if ever you have very technical questions, you'll be able to take them. So a little bit about me. I joined Ocean Protocol like a year ago, kind of like when we really launched the project, and it was kind of a project coming from both two companies, BigChainDB based out of Berlin and DEX based out of Singapore. So now Ocean Protocol is like, if you want, like a venture between the two of them, and the foundation that manages Ocean Protocol is based out of Singapore for different reasons. I personally do a lot of product management and biz dev and public speaking for those who work in startups, and I assume a lot of you do that here. You know that usually you don't have one hat. It's whatever needs to be done, you kind of do it. So just like as a show of hand, like who here is coming from, let's say, the AI background? So just raise your hand if you're more from the AI background, data science and whatnot. Okay, a few, and more from the blockchain background. A few, and I guess the others more like the general startup product people, I guess. So I'm gonna start really quickly with a quick introduction on blockchain. So I asked Adrian before, so I guess it's gonna be very high level. So a lot of you will already know that, and then I'm gonna talk a little bit about AI, also high level. Then I'm gonna go through Ocean Protocol, what we want to build. I'll talk about a little bit about token engineering, which I think is one of the most exciting things right now in the blockchain world. And then I'll go into like the architecture of Ocean Protocol and the applications. And at the end, also, there's going to be a link where you can go, and there's a Google form. You can put your name and your email, and you can claim, once we launch the mainnet, which is planned for now for March next year, you can claim up to like 100 tokens, Ocean tokens. So I'll explain when we get to that slide at the very, very end. And by the way, I also put stickers, laptop stickers at the very at the table there. So at the end, you can go and grab some if you're interested. Cool. So blockchain. Really quickly, the way I see it, for me, it was a confluence of technologies, right? Like when Bitcoin came around, the revolution behind it was really the fact that whoever is behind it, right? If it's one person or different people, they managed to bring together a bunch of different technologies that some of them already existed, some of them were improved upon, but it was just like bring them together and having them work together, right? So decentralized ledger, it's a way of storing data, and it's bringing together some new things around cryptography, proofs, consensus mechanisms, decentralization, etc., etc. Blockchain 1.0 is kind of Bitcoin, right? It's the most famous white paper that we have, and it's kind of a way of exchanging and storing data, values, sorry. And it's some basic functionalities, but it works pretty well if you put aside the amount of energy it uses. But apart from that, it's kind of a really good proof of concept on how blockchain can work, and it's a very pretty solid foundation. Afterwards, Ethereum is kind of like the other really big project that's out there that really improved on Bitcoin by adding this functionality of smart contracts, like being able to run code on the blockchain, and having what is called an EVM to run the smart contracts on the virtual machine, the Ethereum virtual machine. And you can create DAOs. So DAOs, for those who don't know what it is decentralized autonomous organizations, if I'm not wrong. It's basically a way of establishing your organization and like making decentralized and putting some like coding some decisions in it, for example. So let's say, you know, you have a sports association, and let's say that, you know, you're like, okay, if we raise 2,000 euros automatically, then 500 euros will go into buying new balls, and 500 is for new jerseys, etc. And then once you reach $2,000 or euros, automatically that happens, right? No one can be like, oh, actually, I'm just gonna keep the money. It's autonomous. It will do that because you coded that in the beginning. So it's really, really cool to do that, because then if you add AI on top of that, then you can do really cool stuff. Anyways, so that was like on blockchain. So again, like there's some questions at the end, we can go through that, but that was really a very high level overview. AI, again, very high level. AI basically, and you know, machine learning, right, in general, AI, it's very, very, very basic. It's, you know, you have a data set, you have an algorithm, you train the algorithm on that data set, the model will learn by itself to spot patterns, and then you use that model to predict something based on your data. Again, I know that's only one part of like AI, but this is kind of like what I'm going to talk about in that graph. I love that graph. So that comes, a lot of presentation, by the way, comes also from presentations that my co-founder Trent McConaughey made. So if you've seen any YouTube videos of him, you might see some of the same slides, so sorry about that. But okay, so this is a really cool graph. So what does it say? It says that on the vertical axis, it's like the precision of the model that you're training. It's, you know, 95% that you see on the left. And on the horizontal axis, it's basically the size of a data set, a training data set. In this case, it's the number of words that you have in your data set. And imagine that we want to predict the next word in a sentence, or predict a translation or something. It doesn't really matter what we want to predict. What's important to see is that we're using 4 different models. These are kind of like older style of algorithms, sorry. And if you look on the left, so like when the data set is actually not really big, what happens is that, yeah, okay, like they perform differently, the 4 of them, but they all like pretty terrible. I mean, you know, they all have at least 50% of error, which is not usable in any kind of business setting at all. And the interesting thing is that when you add more data, thousands more times of data, well, then you have a lot more, the precision goes up, and what's also interesting to see is that they all can converge pretty much, the models. Meaning that, you know, in Google, there was this, I can't remember the name of the paper, in 2007, they wrote this paper which was about the power of data. And it basically says that, you know, when you're training models, yeah, the algorithm, yeah, it's cool to have one, but what really matters is to have a lot of quality data to train your model on. And so right now, when we have deep learning, DL stands for deep learning, it's even more the case, right? Like deep learning just requires vast amounts of data, you know, whereas it's like an image classification or et cetera, meaning that, you know, what happens is that, well, if you have the data and you have the model and the compute power, well, you can make a lot of money. And for example, that's why Google, they like pretty open about sharing the algorithms they develop, and putting them open source, and also like the compute capabilities and etc. But they never share the data that they own, because that's exactly where the money is. So that becomes a problem. And that was from The Economist. That was, I think, last year, something like that. The world's most valuable resource, like data is the new oil, or like kind of like taglines you've read and stuff. There's some truth behind it. More data, more compute, more accuracy, more money. Easy, right? Like for Google, for example, for, you know, when they're selling ads, well, the more data they have on you, the more they know what you're gonna click on with a certain degree of certainty. That means the more expensive they can sell that to companies. So having all of that together, they make a lot of money, which means that all your personal data is like siloed. They don't want to share that. It's in, you know, Facebook, and we've all heard about what happened with like data issues at Facebook in the past 2 years. Basically, all your personal data and any kind of data is just siloed. It's stored somewhere. You can't access it, and it creates a lot of problems, right? Because, you know, and I'm not only talking about like, you know, it's your data, it's what you create, and there's a lot of like privacy issues with that, but also because, you know, a lot of AI startups around here can do so much good for the world in a way, right? If they had access to data in terms of environment, healthcare, energy consumptions, etc., they have like really smart people, they just don't have the data behind it. That's Lawrence Lonnie-Brand. He works for Outlier Ventures based out of London. They invest in some blockchain projects, and they also invested in Ocean Protocol. And he wrote that, which is really cool. It's about like the core issue right now of data and data sharing and stuff. Two issues. The data is siloed, I just mentioned it really quickly, and there's no economic incentive to share, right? Like, you know, right now, as I mentioned, if you have the data, you basically have the value, right? And you have companies right now that their sole business model is to create data. They don't do anything with it, but they just sell the data, or they hope that they get enough data that Google or Facebook or Baidu or Alibaba or whatnot will buy them out. I mean, which is smart. I'm not saying it's not smart, but it creates an issue because then we could do so much more of that data. So let's go first with siloed data and then the economic incentive to share. So eroding the silos. Well, you know, if we pull the data and we make it more available, you know, in some way, and more compute, more accuracy, more dollars for everyone. How can we do that? Well, right now we have a lot of data, thousands of enterprises that have the data, and on the other end, we have a lot of like AI expertise and related problems to solve. So, you know, on the left you can imagine logistic companies, or you can imagine like oil companies or satellite companies and whatnot. On the right you can imagine, you know, AI startups working maybe with the UN to solve issues, etc. And there's a very small kind of like overlap, and that overlap is Google, Facebook, as I said, Baidu, Amazon, Alibaba, all Tencent, all the big ones, right? And like they have both the data, both the expertise, and that means that, you know, they want to keep that, and that's why, you know, their valuations are just like skyrocketing, because the investors are not dumb. They know that's where the money is. Well, if we can connect them with a substrate, and that's what we're trying to do with Ocean, then we've solved part of the problem. Well, obviously it's simpler to say than to do it, but hopefully I can talk a little bit on how we're trying to do that. So that's a pretty full-on thing. So the Ocean Public Utility Network would be acting as a substrate. So I'm starting from the bottom, and on top of that you have, you know, data marketplaces, you have AI commons, and you have data science tools. And all of that live in that ecosystem, which is powered by Ocean Protocol. And if you have this ecosystem and you have all of that, and there's the economic incentive to share, which I'm going to talk about afterwards, then you can have this ecosystem where if you need the data, if you need to run some AI, if you need like questions to be answered, then you can go to Ocean Protocol, the ecosystem, and hopefully solve that. Who here has heard about Sabre and Amadeus? Both two companies. Anyone? All right. So you've probably used them in the past month, 2 months, 3 months, without knowing you've used them. They basically are the substrate that power all the airline ticketing websites that you use. Meaning that, you know, I mean, I've never wondered about it before someone told me, but like, you know, if I go on kayak.com and I book a flight Cluj to Bucharest, and I book the 5 p.m. flight and I book the seat 12F, as soon as I pay for it, if I go on Expedia or if I go on Skyscanner and I try to book the same seat, it's unavailable. How does those two websites which have nothing in common know that like one seat has been booked like literally 30 seconds before? It's because they all tap into the same data sets and databases and everything. And those data is all owned by Amadeus and Sabre, and they make a ton of money out of that. They value like billions and billions of dollars. So that means that you use them all the time and never heard about them. And it's a very simple analogy for what we want to try to do. But Ocean Protocol wants to try to be that substrate where on top of it you have different services and data marketplaces that would tap in Ocean Protocol. So for example, if you have a transaction that's happening in a data marketplace, that would be, you know, happening in one marketplace, but the transaction would be stored and saved on the substrate, which is Ocean Protocol. Meaning that, you know, if another data marketplace is trying to get information on a transaction, it could, even though it, you know, the two marketplaces might not interact directly. So a quick word of why we want to have Ocean Protocol decentralized, because sometimes like this question comes up. Well, one of the reasons is like, so the data owner retains the control, right? Like if you're using a centralized system, then you have to like store your data there, or you have to give your key, your access key to that data to that centralized party, or etc., etc. And then that centralized party can usually decide who buys it, who doesn't buy it, who to offer it to. That creates a lot of like governance issues and etc., etc. Well, in this case, it's decentralized as Ocean Protocol. We don't store the data at all. We don't, have a say in like who gets it, who buys it, etc. It's up to the data owner. So that like it's more control on your own data. It's also like a public utility, so there's no like single entity controlling it. So there's not like the issue that you might have at Facebook deciding what to do with your data and etc. It's kind of like very open in that regard. And also like with blockchain and decentralization, you have this very powerful system of like incentivization, like token rewards, etc., etc. And that's what I'm going to talk about right now. Let me just get some water. All right, so this is basically what we call token engineering in some way. It's a very interesting topic, and we've tried to we've organized a bunch of meetups around the world, on token engineering. And it's like, how do you incentivize people in a decentralized space to do something for, let's say, the greater good, right? And the greater good is to be defined. Well, it's by having block rewards, token rewards, meaning you reward people when they do something that you want them to do. And that's kind of the blockchain superpower. It's you get people to do stuff by rewarding them tokens. And I'm going to talk really quickly about Bitcoin. Why? Because it's the most common example. It's really interesting. So what is the goal of Bitcoin? It's to maximize the security of the network, meaning that it's pretty much impossible to alter a transaction that has happened. Right? You can't go back because if you wanted to go back, you would need to have an extremely huge amount of computing power in your hands to actually change the blockchain. And what it means is that if you actually run compute to secure the network, then you get rewarded. That's exactly what miners do. What do miners do? They try to solve mathematical equations to make it simple, and it takes them a lot of compute power. And when they do that, well, they can finally get rewarded with tokens, meaning that it takes everyone is competing by putting a lot of power into it, and you reward them by doing that. That's just a little bit of quick math. If we want to get the expected value that you would get in terms of block rewards, it's kind of proportional to how much power you put into hashing and getting the answer to the equation, and also the number of tokens that is available by block. So a very simple kind of way of visualizing how does Bitcoin work, right? Also, I know maybe some people in the back can't really see the slides. Sorry about that. I'll share the slides afterwards. So, okay. So yeah, basically it's that's really cool when you think about it, right? It's you have people all around the world, they don't know each other, they don't trust each other, but they're all working a common goal because you're paying them, basically, right? It's human greed, but it works. And that's really interesting. So for Ocean, I had more slides afterwards, with a bit more math, but we're thinking a bit again on how we want to do it. But basically, our goal, Bitcoin was to maximize the security of the network. For us, it's to maximize, first of all, token design. So the way we approach the problem is okay, how do we design this token engineering? Well, you formulate the problem. You look at the objectives, the constraints, the different stakeholders, etc. You try to make these patterns. If it doesn't work, you try new things, and then you design a new pattern. So if ever you're starting a blockchain project, for example, that is a good way, very simple way of thinking about how do you want to design your block rewards, your token rewards, right? What do you want to achieve? What are your constraints? What are your objectives? And based on that, you use certain, you try certain patterns. You make a checklist. Okay, does it fulfill that condition, that condition, that condition? And then you find the best one, and then that's how you design your token engineering. Quickly, for Ocean, we have tons of stakeholders, right? Bitcoin has less. He has the miners, the value holders, the Bitcoin holders, and maybe another or two, but that's pretty much it, right? For Ocean, we have the data providers, the data owners, the service providers. We have the people who are like, I'm going to talk more about that afterwards, who curate the data, who verify the transactions and the services. We have the consumers of the data, right? Maybe an AI scientist, maybe a data scientist. And we have the keepers, which are like the equivalent of the miners, for example. So lots of different actors in the ocean ecosystem. Different objectives, different constraints. How do we design the token reward so that everyone works into the way we want? And what do we want actually? Well, we want to reward people by creating data and making it available. What does that mean? Right, imagine if you have like a purely decentralized data ecosystem with tons of data assets. So it could be data sets, models, algorithms, etc. around there. What tells you what is good and what is not good? What good quality? Is it spammy data? Is it relevant for you, etc., etc.? Well, if there's no central authority to like decide that's good, that's not good, think about like a critic in the New York Times, for example, on a restaurant. Like they'll be like, okay, well this is good, this is not good. How do you know what data is good? Well, you have curators, and in order to do that, you have people who will basically check data sets and be like, okay, well, I think this is really good and really relevant data set. And they will stake their tokens, right? And by doing that, they basically make it more discoverable. And they make a bet on the quality of a data, on the future popularity of a data set. If they're right, if it becomes more popular, then they get rewarded in the future. So it's a very basic thing. And again, like I can talk afterwards more on that. It's what we call proofed curation market. The basics is like that, right? If you believe that a data set is going to be popular and is good quality, then you put money where your mouth is. And when you do that, then you can basically afterwards have, you get rewarded if you're correct, if it's actually popular. And again, that's a very complex subject, and we can talk about that afterwards, but I'm going to move on a little bit. Ocean architecture. So I'm going to go a little bit more like on the design, the engineering design, etc. Again, like I worked on that, but if you have questions around that, there will be someone for the Q&A to talk about that. Cool. So first of all, that's kind of like where we started from. Also, we're like, okay, like from an AI point of view, from a data scientist point of view, how do we like kind of want to make it work? We realized that the best way to do it is to leave the data. If you're a data scientist and you want to train a model on certain data that you want to access, well, the best way is, for everyone is not to buy the data and download the data. That would be like very complicated. So you basically leave the data, the private data, where it is, and basically you send the model, or you send the model over to be trained, and then you get the model predictions in the end. And Ocean is kind of in between. It's kind of like it's kind of the interface between the two, right? And again, with different services that would be available. The data doesn't move, the data stays there, so that reassures the data owners. But as a data scientist, you still have access to the power of data, right? The patterns that are in the data. So I'm going to touch upon like one of the concepts we have, which is a concept of tribes. What is a tribe? A tribe is like a set of people or entities that have something in common and governance in common. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you look at like the compute pipeline here, for example, you have the data provider, the algorithm, the compute provider. So for example, that would be like an energy company is a data provider. The data scientists want to train the algorithm on it. And there's something that a compute provider, it could be a service that just provides like EC2 instances, for example, to make it very simple. That's trusted, and then the model predictions go into a storage provider, and then afterwards it's being used. We want to have all these different services available on Ocean Protocol. And in order to make it more easy for those people to gather and work together and etc., we'll have this concept of tribes, meaning you can have, for example, a compute tribe, a data tribe, an algorithm tribe, a storage tribe, etc., etc. Those are different potential partners or different systems. So S3 for data tribe, for example, compute tribe like Tribit, Enigma, etc., etc. What this means is that, you know, imagine like the ocean ecosystem as a living environment of different kind of like groups of interest and services and communities basically, which are around a certain topic. So for example, you might have a lot of like, you know, in terms of like data tribe, you might have, for example, a lot of like energy companies that are like, hey, listen, like they talk to other energy companies that are on Ocean Protocol. Let's create like our own tribe, our own marketplace, because we know what we're talking about. We can have our own rules on like what we want to share, how can people access that, and etc. And so that's basically an inter-service network on Ocean Protocol. That's kind of like the ultimate goal of Ocean Protocol, is to have everything accessible in that kind of environment. So, sorry, you can't really see on the left there, but this is kind of a little bit like the high-level view of the architecture that we have in a way. So how would that work? So in more details, we're going to have, at the very low level, we're going to have the keepers. The keepers are going to be the ones like running the smart contracts, validating the transactions, making sure everything works, like, you know, the very nitty-gritty work like down there. On top of that, we're going to have different layers, verifiers that verify, that basically create the proofs. So, you know, like if you buy access to a data set, you know, like we need someone to prove that you actually got access to it, because that's to resolve like disputes and etc. If you want to train a model, then, you know, how can we prove that actually the model has been trained? So you have like this proof, like, okay, like it actually worked, etc., etc. And on top of that, we also have the curators. That's the one I mentioned earlier. The curators are going to be, you know, basically earning tokens by investing their own tokens into what they believe is relevant and quality data. And at the end, you have the data scientist or the AI person or a university or a company that, you know, needs data, etc. So by, you know, having all those layers, then we can like go into like more detailed components. So I should mention right now that like the GitHub is open source, so you can access it and like look at the code. We're gonna have a new release in 2 weeks, but like you can really follow all the architecture documentations and all the different like details on the components and etc. are already in GitHub, etc. So we're gonna have like at the top we're gonna have the front end, like, you know, how do you access like the different data marketplaces, etc. The data science tools. And just behind that, we're going to have the providers. We call it Aquarius and Brizo, that are kind of like there to kind of like be like in between the keepers and like the very front end, right? So like the keepers are like the ones verifying the transactions and the smart contracts and etc. And then in between the front end, the data scientists, and that we have the agent. Sebastian will be able to talk a bit more about that during the Q&A. And at the very bottom, we're gonna have like access to Azure, Amazon, that's already there. Like we're also gonna have a storage for metadata, and we're also gonna have the circuit store from Parity, which is a really cool way of storing private keys and making sure that like only the people that, you know, you give access to your data can actually access the private keys. It's a very, very interesting thing. I recommend people to read about that. It's a really cool concept. Again, Sebastian can talk a bit more about that, the secret store. Cool. So how would that look a little bit? This is very like a very basic kind of UI that we developed for the very early versions. It's gonna change, but that would be like some kind of like, you know, give you an idea of like the data sets that you would have in Marketplace, and then you would be able to look at different your dashboard portfolio and what kind of like data sets you've like staked into and like how it evolves and etc. So that's kind of like for curation purposes. You can have also, you know, your different data sets. What did you buy? Right there, it's like memes. This is kind of like what we started with, but then you're gonna, you know, like that's kind of like all your data sets that you've got access to. How do you want to check them and etc. For those who are like the AI data scientist people here, I guess a lot of you are using Jupyter, like IPython notebooks and etc. You know, we can also interact with MetaMask. And for those who are like from the blockchain world, you obviously know what MetaMask is. So it would be like bringing together the data science tools with like the crypto world. So from that, you will be able to run your own models on Ocean Protocol using the tokens, like the ERC20 tokens, and like basically training your models, running some basic Python, etc. Mantera is like the repo where we're working on that. It's also open source, so you can go and check it out. So what does it mean for like the data scientists and the AI people, right? Well, you'll be able to have access, and again, this is like the end goal, right? So we're still in early stages, but I'm talking about like the end goal, what we want to achieve. You'll have access to way more data than before, right? Because not only will you have access to like the free and open data that you can find already, but like hopefully and normally a lot of companies, enterprises will start putting their data there. So you'll have access to that. And for the enterprises, we'll try to avoid like data escapes. More dollars, right? Not only because you will be able to like sell your data, but also maybe because you will be running one of the services. So you can make money by cleaning data, labeling data, doing some feature engineering, for curation, for developing algorithms that you can sell afterwards. Everything will live in the ecosystem. And also you have like more like you have a better track record of like where the data is coming from, where it went, who bought it, who got access to it, and etc. That's like one of the powers of like blockchain, is like traceability and provenance. And then you have a lot of applications that will be accessible. And I'm going to talk quickly about the applications. So what does it mean to unlock AI data and the AI data and services? We're working with this partnership called Mobi. Mobi stands for mobility. And you got Toyota, BMW, Renault, and a lot of different companies. Autonomous driving, it's one of the the next big things, sorry. And the thing, they need a lot of data, of miles driven to train the models to actually drive safely around the world. Well, they realize that, it's better for everyone that they go into a partnership and share that data instead of going their own way, right? If they go their own way, maybe in 10 years, all of them will be able to have like autonomous driving. If they go together, maybe in 2 years, everyone has autonomous driving. So it's like better for everyone. And in having this data sharing with Ocean Protocol, we're gonna be kind of like the data sharing layer, the data exchange layer, if you want. We're also working with Connected Life, where they're using wearable devices to like track Parkinson's diseases, and then they're gonna develop into more, more tracking of diseases, etc. Like again, like what can we do with that data? We can put that data in the hands of AI companies that then can, improve the models, make them better, make them more precise, and then everyone benefit from that. We're also working with the government of Singapore, the IMDA, the data authorities, and so for the policymakers, that would mean having more access to more data. That will mean also having some of the answers they want around the governance, etc., to some of the questions they have to be answered by the people on Ocean Protocol. Let's say they have a lot of like public data and they want to improve the traffic in one of their cities. Well, they will be able to basically bid the data and have like different AI companies compete to answer that question and then reward them. So those are some of the different applications we can have. In conclusion, basically right now AI data is siloed. The services are also siloed, and we can try to, with incentives and with blockchain technology, we can try to democratize that and put data in the hands of more people, etc. So if you want to help us, you can help us basically by becoming an Ocean ambassador, which is around the world. If you want to organize meetups and organize groups of discussions and everything, we can help you set that up. So that's pretty cool. Check out our GitHub. So I know a bunch of you here are developers. So it's open source. You can check it out. We already have a bunch of like people from the open source community coming. We have a Gitter. Ask questions. We have bounties also, meaning that we have some problems, challenges to be solved by developers, and reward them with tokens. And and you can connect us. You can email.
Okay, I have a sort of a confusion. You kept talking about data commons, but correct me if I'm wrong, what you're actually proposing is monetizing data.
Yeah.
So in what sense is it a commons if it will function as a platform for transacting data?
Yeah. So I'll repeat the question quickly. So the question was like, there was a lot of mentions around data commons, but I talked mostly about data transactions and monetization of data, which is a really good question. I decided today to like talk mostly about that, but data commons is one of the pillars they want to work on. So I'll talk for a few minutes around that. One of the goals we want to have is to make data as democratic as possible, and more people having access to that. Now, for now, at the beginning, it's going to be difficult, right? There's already a lot of like data that's available and free, so we want that data to be on Ocean Protocol, accessible through Ocean Protocol. The ultimate goal, though, is how do we convince people who own data to make it available for free instead of selling it? Well, it sounds like it's an impossible challenge to solve. We think there are some solutions with token rewards, meaning that the more people using Ocean Protocol, the more people using the different services, the different data assets, and etc., then the more valuable the token rewards will become. And we want to get to a point where it will be more interesting from a monetary point of view if you own data to actually make it available for free so that more people will actually download it, so you have higher block rewards and token rewards than actually selling it in one go. So that's kind of like the ultimate goal we have, is to make it important for people to make it more valuable for people to make their data open and free than actually sell it by using token rewards. Does that answer your question?